Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Let us bow for a word of prayer. Father God, we come before you now, first to say thank you. Thank you, God, for being good to us, for your unfailing love, and for your undeserved grace. We say thank you. Your word tells us that you are full of compassion and that your mercies are new every morning, and we say thank you. Now, Lord, we have come together in this place to have candid conversations about the realities of addiction, when the difficulties of life challenge us and cause us to sometimes want to remove ourselves from the grips of our realities, when our minds lead us into dark places that causes us to, in some way, bring harm to ourselves. We pray, dear God, that you strengthen those who are suffering through various kinds of addiction, instead of them running towards those things that only give temporary pleasure. Remind them that they can instead run to you for comfort, for guidance, for direction, and for help, because you, Lord, are a very present help in the time of trouble. You said, Lord, that you would keep us in perfect peace if we keep our minds stayed on you. We ask that with the presentations and conversations we have and witness today, that you would break the chains of mental instability, that you would heal, deliver, and set minds free. Help those who have been tasked with caring for those suffering.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I bring you greetings. My name is Tony Gilliam Harrison, and I am humbled to be the president of Dade County Alumnae Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, where we have over 200 dynamic and educated women who bring services to the Miami-Dade County area since 1981. Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated is a private, not-for-profit organization whose purpose is to provide assistance and help.
And that you will take from it all that you need. Know that your family members can better understand the issues that you are facing, and that you know all the resources, and we're glad to have our resource people here, are available to you. Again, this is our 4th year, our first in person, and this will also be uploaded next month on our YouTube channel. So what you don't get today will still be available to you beginning next month, every day, as many times as you want to view it. We thank you, hoping that, again, you get all the information you need and that you enjoy the program. Tissue all around the room. Thank you for coming.
God, why? Why, God? Why me, God? I know you're out there. And I know you see me. So come out here and face me like a man. Just listen to me and hear me out. Did you create me as a joke? Or was I created out of your hatred? What did I do to you to deserve this life of pain from birth? wish my sufferings could be weighed. My misery put on scales. My sadness would be heavier than the sand of the seas. Let the day I was born be destroyed. That night they said a boy was born. Let that day turn to darkness. Let that night be empty of my birth. Are you listening to me? Talk to me! Yeah, see, God, I know to get your attention. See this here? This is my protector and my provider. This has kept me when you couldn't keep me. I live and I die by this. This is my way of life. Are you listening to me? Answer me. Were you when my daddy strangled my mom to death, huh? Mama! Mama! I'm so sorry, Mama. Daddy was too strong. I couldn't stop him, Mama. And where were you when my mother, uncle, raped my little sister over and over again while my daddy stood back there and watched? And where were you when my so-called foster parents used me as a punching bag, huh? Touch me. Touch me. I was a little boy. I was a little boy. Get off of me. Get off of me. Save me. Save me.
I heard your cries. I saw your tears, your childhood pain and your troubles. I told you I would never leave you nor forsake you, and I kept my promise. You thought this thing was gonna take you out, but you are more victorious than this. I called you the head and not the tail. I said you are above and not beneath. Don't tell me how big your problems are. Tell your problems how big I am. I told you that I am. You need a savior, I am that. You need a deliverer, I am that. You need a healer, I am that. Get up, son.
I can't.
There is more in you. You are more than a conqueror. Get up, son.
I can't. Every time I try, I keep falling.
Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. Look, I know you failed. The shame is not falling. The shame is not. Get up. Get up, son. That's it. Now take a step. One step at a time, son. Life is a game of inches, son. You win a battle, one fight at a time. Yeah, that's it. That's it. You see, son, I love you. And that's the trick of the enemy to make you think I don't. When I said my son, I had you in my mind. Before the foundations of the earth, I knew you. I sanctified you and I set you apart to be a prophet to this nation. Oh, son, there was so much on the inside of you. If only you knew what you carried on the inside of you. I put so much purpose in you. And the devil is trying to stop you, but he is a liar because you will be everything I called you to be. There is somebody out there that needs what you are carrying. So I need you to go. Go into the world and be great. Because that's who you are. You're great. You're great. You're great. Oh, son, you are the apple of my eye. Oh, if you only knew how much I love you. Take a step, son. Walk out there into the world and show them what you're made of. Having done all to stand, just stand. I'll do the rest. Come on. Come out there to the world and show them how great you are. There you go. Go.
After facing years of struggle to love himself and become comfortable in his skin, Marvin moved to Miami, Florida to flee the horrors of active addiction. Marvin became worse off until he decided enough was enough. Marvin's life changed on March 18, 2019, when he decided to get clean. Since that time, Marvin has become an active member of a 12-step fellowship. Marvin has a sponsor and sponsors other men. Marvin has dedicated himself to working in the substance abuse mental health industry. Marvin is actively working on a life coach certification, as well as pursuing an addiction counseling certification. Marvin recently launched his podcast, The Chop with Marvin Lee. Now, the next gentleman, his name is David Gregory. My name is David. I'm 35 years old, and I was born and raised in Broward County, Florida. My whole family struggles with substance abuse issues, and most of them have died as a result of my father dying from AIDS, from shooting dirty heroin needles. My mom died from chronic alcoholism. My grandfather had cirrhosis of the liver, and my aunt overdosed and died from pain pills. And I went down the same road of addiction for over 16 years of my life. But on September 11, 2016, I changed my life for good and got clean through working with NA, Narcotics Anonymous. I have been clean for over 7 years. 7 years. That's worthy of applause. I'm a positive member of society. I have a good job, and I've also started a real estate business that is growing. I have a beautiful fiance, Christina, and a daughter, Madeline, who was born April 21st of this year. Both of those, bio and testimony, are very touching. So, as we proceed to our live experience sessions led by, again, Savannah Smith, I want you all to keep an open heart and an open mind.
living beneath those privileges, that was perfect. For me, I always felt like I had this gift inside me. Like nobody could tell me what I was. If I wanted to sing, I wanted to dance, and all those things. And I just felt like everything that I was doing was taking me away from that. And I had gotten to a place in my life that all those traumas had just built up and kept sitting there. And I'm running from all those things, whatnot. And I just got tired of being tired. And I made the choice for myself. Mama couldn't do it for me. Grandma couldn't do it for me. Nobody could do it for me. I had to be sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I had done so many lists ever since.
Blessed. Whew.
Now, David.
So what made me sick and tired of being sick and tired? Thank you to the community that put this event on. Thank you to everyone that took part in this. And thank you for asking me to be a part of this. I appreciate it. Addiction really just drug me through the mud, and at the end of it, at the end of the road, I was working at, I always had a good job. And I was working at this job, 28 years old. I was taking home roughly $900 to $1,000 a week. I was riding the city bus because I sold the last 3 of my cars or crashed them. Everything I owned was in a pawn shop. I was living in an abandoned house in the middle of Florida summer with no running water, no electricity, showering in the community pool, charging my phone on my neighbor's patio, living by candlelight pretty much, get paid a nice check Friday, Saturday, wake up with $20 to my name. That was kind of the point that said, like, God, why am I living like this? And I was just tired of it. And I don't know, for years I was always in and out of treatment facilities, in and out of church, and everything. And no matter like what my family tried to do or how much they tried to push it on me, I had to reach that point of myself where I was just tired of it, and that was kind of my point.
So, sticking with you, in the podcast, Hell Has an Exit, you mentioned that addiction was introduced into your life from an early age because of bullying, and you were deemed as socially retarded by your principal and then later on your mother. What resources do you believe that the school could have and or should have provided to aid you in helping to possibly shape your future in a different manner?
I mean, I believe that, God makes no mistakes and everything happens for a reason, but, so kind of just to backtrack on that, I was called socially retarded in school because I was fiercely bullied, all right? And I was, kids, nowadays, I was in the public school system in elementary school almost 30 years ago. So bullying was a little bit different then, and now it's like, it's very frowned upon and there's courses of action that kind of prevent that. But, back 30 years ago, kids were ruthless. And when they found out one thing that was your weakness, they exploited that. And mine was I had a dead dad. And they would always make fun of me because I was a kid with a dead dad, and it didn't matter, like, for example, a girl clowned on my dad, I tied her shoes together under the desk. She fell and busted her lip, it was a thing. There was a kid who was a lot bigger than me, he made fun of my father, I bit him in the neck, and like, I put my hands on people because I didn't know how to act, and through this pattern of just lashing out on people when they would make fun of me and hurt my feelings, in such a way, the principal only saw it from the side of the people that I was hurting, right? They didn't look at it as, oh, why is this kid doing this? What's going on here to make this kid act this way? And she just kind of put me in a box and said, this kid isn't capable of, he's socially retarded, he's not able of having relationships with his peers, he's not able to function correctly in society, and when she told my mother that in the parent-teacher conference, it kind of stuck with my mother, and she was a verbally abusive alcoholic, so that was her go-to every time she got drunk. You're socially retarded, you can't do nothing right. And that stuck with me for years. But what resources do kids have, or could schools have to help kids more? Kind of dig a little deeper, and honestly find out what the real issue is before, like, assess the situation before jumping to conclusions. That would be my biggest takeaway from that.
Good job, David.
I love the last line of assess the situation, because often too times we're too quick to jump and decide what side we want to take on before we decide what's really going on. Maybe this is a cry out for help and you just need somebody to say, are you okay? So your addiction started a little bit later on in life. It started at the age of 34 and it began with marijuana. And then I remember on the podcast you mentioned that during your undergrad career, you were introduced to coke by someone, and then it later on became your drug of choice. So please expound on the trials and tribulations you dealt with while battling religion, because you grew up in a very religious household, versus substance abuse.
And for me, one thing that I'll say is I have never in my life had a problem with God. I'll say that first. I've always hated religion. You can't tell me how to come to the God of my understanding. You can't do that. You're not going to tell me what that relationship should look like for me, because what works for me may not work for you. What works for you may not work for me. But at the end of the day, I was trained up the right way. Grandmother, on Sunday mornings, you got the biscuits going and the grits on the oven. You know what I'm talking about, right? So we get ready to go to church. It is not up for debate. You are going to church. I don't care if you just went to sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning. You getting up, you going to church. And I'm that kid that my grandmother, when they found out I could sing, she would make me memorize her favorite songs. And we all know Shirley Caesar. So I had to sing, a little 8-year-old boy singing Shirley Caesar in church. And I'm already struggling with, the sexual orientation, and everything was gonna send me to hell. Everything. So here I am. I'm trying to be true to who I am as an individual, and I'm trying to, develop this relationship with God as I want him to be to me, because I'm being misunderstood. And when you talk about the behaviors and the anger and things of that nature, I was called, as a kid, I was bullied and called Mad Marvin, even by my own family. And nobody ever stopped to ask, why is he mad? Never mind the fact that daddy left at the age of 3. Never mind the fact that the uncle is molesting you. Never mind the fact that all these other things are happening. And the church is, the church is the answer. The church is the answer, but nobody's stopping to check on my soul. You understand what I'm saying? So for me, the very same people that are supposed to nurture me are the ones that are harming me. And I gotta hold on to my faith as I know it with God, And one thing about me is I love scripture. So I'm going through this whole dynamic that the way that I was taught or programmed to think about God with the scriptures, like everything that you did was sin. If you breathe wrong, you going to hell. If you cough wrong, you going to hell. If you said good morning the wrong way, you going to hell. I mean, that's just what it was. So it was fear-based. And for me, I'm trying to have faith in a God that I've been programmed to be afraid of. And it finally gets to a place in my life that I have to say, you know what? My life is going to look like what my life looks like. And God, I'm at this place now. It's like, God, this is what it's going to be. You said you're going to be with me no matter what. So I'm just going to trust you and take you at your word no matter what. And I finally just say, you know what? I got to live for me. But it still wasn't easy. I still struggled with that whole relationship. And now today I'm good. I am delivered and set free. And I'm okay with who I am. Because I understood that God created me in his image and in his likeness no matter what. I am neither good nor bad. I just am. And so today, I don't think of those things in terms of being afraid of God. I understand that all things work together. He didn't say that what I went through would be good, but he guaranteed me that the outcome would be good. And so my thing is, I understand that all of the experiences that I've gone through, I faced the pain and I stepped into my purpose, and now I'm able to do what this God that I was never afraid to be in love with, he's doing in my life what he said he was going to do anyway. It's greater than I thought it could have been. So that's where I am now. So like religion, it's still a turnout for me. But God we're good. We're good.
I had another question for you that was going off to a different topic, but since we're already talking about God and talking about our testimonies, let me go to you. We as a people tend to always pray for God to get us through a situation or from a situation. In the podcast, you would mention, I pray to God they come back with my money when you're making a drug transaction, or I pray to God that the cops are behind me and they don't pull me over. As you were in the rehabilitation center, you prayed and said, and I quote, "If you could just help me stay clean in this facility today, and you do this for me, I'll do the same thing again tomorrow. Have you ever prayed to God and thanked Him for where you are today and the blessings you now have from the prayers you prayed then?
110%. I did it yesterday. I did it this morning on the drive down here. I too, with Marvin, I was raised in a very a confused household, divided household between religions. Half my family was Jewish, half my family was Catholic, and I was, it was kind of, I had to find my own path towards Christianity and God, and I never really, God was something I had to do as a child. I had to go to church, I had to be an altar boy, I had to do these things, but I had no relationship, and because I had no relationship, I had really no prayer life, no anything of that sort. And the first time I honestly prayed was when I was in detox, because I was just broken, and I remember I had to get a sponsor once I started attending 12-step meetings. And he was like, man, why don't you, set a goals list for yourself? And I started praying and I wrote down a goals list, and it was crazy. By the time I had a year clean, every goal that was on that piece of paper was accomplished. And I remember I used to pray, God, one day let me find a woman crazy enough to deal with me, and have a family, because I really want to be a father, because I want to do the things with my child that I never get to do or got to do with my dad, and sure enough, last April I became a father, and it's just all these things, looking, so many things that I prayed for. Some days I get ungrateful, oh my God, I have all these things to do. But then I look back at it, you idiot, you prayed for these things, and so to answer your question, yes, all the time.
I can talk about God all day. So can I. So Marvin, finally telling your mother and your best friend that you were using and that you needed help had to be a huge step for you. So a continuation of the topic of God. Similar to Dave, you prayed to God and said, God, if you deliver me from this darkness, I promise I'll follow you. You also mentioned how you often felt like your words never really carried any weight. Do you feel that after you prayed this prayer, that this was the first time in a while where your words held some weight?
Yes. I honestly do feel like, because of the relationship that I have with God, God always heard me, and He always believed me and believed in me. The problem was I never believed in me. I believed in who you said that I was, which is why today I say who I am. Because if I don't know who I am, you can tell me who you want me to be. Right. And that creates a more of a problem. And with God, there are things, when I talk about that darkness, you can use your imagination. Here in South Florida and in the scene, I'm going to keep it PG. I don't want to go there. Again, my testimony is for me to remember. It's for me to remember so that I don't repeat the pattern. Because as he was saying, the life I live today, I prayed for this. The life I'm living today, my grandma who had me in church singing, this is the life she prayed for me. Those prayers are still being answered. The life I'm living today, this is the life my mom, even though I feel like she didn't care or what have you, she only cared up to her capacity of understanding. So on my end, I have to see things. I'm hurting, yes, but I have to understand that she has a limited understanding of how to reach me. Because how about she may feel the same way I feel, because her family is looking at her like, this is your son. How could you let your son turn out this way? And so now her attitude towards me is a little different. So there's a whole lot of miscommunication, misunderstanding, chaos, and confusion. And somebody has to stop and sit back and say, you know what? Let me try to understand instead of wanting to be understood, right? Because that chaotic communication, that dysfunctional communication, see, that keeps the pattern going. Yeah. And so sometimes somebody has to be willing to say, let me be humble enough to just listen. So for me, that started by saying, God, you got to deliver me from this darkness, because a lot of the time, you may be that one person in your bloodline that has been chosen by God to break those generational curses. And in this instance, I felt like that was me. And so I was ready to say, God, I don't care what it looks like. And I had no idea what it would look like, but I'm okay with that. I have to have faith for the unknown instead of fear of the unknown. And that's where we are today. Don't make me preach.
So the theme of this panel has seemed to be God and understanding, and sometimes the adults in our lives and the people who are supposed to be providing us the guidance, not necessarily having the capacity to understand. So this goes to you. Is there a part of you, well, the younger you, that blames the adults around you, such as the ones you worked in the 2 strip clubs with, and or the teachers for not realizing earlier on that you may have had an addiction and needed help? And the second part to the question is, if so, what has been your process of forgiving them? And do you strive to be the type of leadership to our youth now that you wish someone was to you back then?
That's a loaded question. I mean, so you talked about going down that path and working the places I worked, and like when you're going down a dark road, those same people are going down the dark road. So it's not like they could say, hey, there's a problem here, let's turn around and go the other way. They're stuck on stupid just like I am. You know, so I really didn't have high expectations of those people. I mean, maybe, you know, and as adults, a lot of times, especially now today, we get so stuck on being busy and being like, for me, you know, I can be busy, I can be self-centered, I can be just worried about like feeding my family or doing this, that I'm not really putting too much emphasis or attention on caring about the next person or what the next person's going through. You know, and same with these people that I encountered in my life. They were just trying to do the best they could with what they had, you know, so, but how do, you know, what helped me in a process to forgive them was, one, I got right with God, and I started getting involved in a 12-step program that had me work some steps. And part of those steps is, you know, step 8 and 9 is forgiveness. And, you know, you have to forgive those people. Because if I don't forgive people that hurt me, it's like me if I'm mad at Marvin for something he did, it's like me drinking poison and expecting him to die. Right. You know, it's just poisoning me on the inside. You know, so that's what forgiveness is for me. It lets me drop that bag of rocks that I've been carrying for all these years to a person that really probably doesn't even know that they affected me. You know, because at the end of the day, I'm just hurting myself. And moving forward, you know, I just try and be positive to any person that comes in my path. You know, every day I say, hey, God, use me as your vessel and help me just help one person today. Yeah. You know, and whether, you know, whether someone asks for my help or there's a little kid who needs help with math questions or just whatever it is, just try and be a big brother for that person or try and be like a positive community, because there's a lot of people in the world that don't care and there's a lot of sick people out there. So if I can just be a little bit of light to somebody and change one person's life, then I'm doing okay.
You handled that very loaded question very well. So I would like to bring the audience in for a little bit of participation. How many members of the audience have ever been to college, whether it was a 1 semester, you graduated, you transferred? Can I just get a show of hands? Anybody ever been to college? So to you, for anyone, and I'm sure the audience can agree, who has been to college, the transition from high school to your freshman year, that first semester, can be so very rough.
Ooh, yes it can.
Your freshman year of undergrad, you suffered the loss of 2 of your brothers.
First semester.
2 brothers. Let's picture this. He suffered the loss of 2 of his brothers during his first semester of undergrad. In the interview, you stated that it was ironic how at the same time how you were learning how to swim.
It's not something that is just today, I'm going to get this and it's going to be this straight line. Some days I might be up, some days I might be down. Some days I might be laying in the floor crying. Some days I might be in bed depressed. Another day I might be cussing somebody out. I hate to go there, but it's the truth. Because it's the feeling behind this thing, and I got to sit with this feeling. So for me, my healing process, it has continued that day. And I started to understand myself, and I started to understand the process. Now I'm releasing other people from what I accused or assumed that they had done to me. So now I can't be a victim of a set of circumstances that I'm creating, right? Because the moment that I know and I acknowledge that, that's on me. When I forgive you, again, I'm setting me free. But I'm not going to forget what happened. And the reason I don't forget is because if I forget, I'm doomed to repeat that lesson again, right? But true forgiveness for me, or true forgiveness, is when I can remember and there's no anger anymore. I'm free. And I have to understand, I can extend compassion to somebody else. I can extend empathy because I know what it feels like to be there. So, even now my healing, one of my brothers, the oldest of the two that passed away, I seen them like 3 weeks prior to that. His birthday was October 1st, so it was 3 weeks after his birthday, his 23rd birthday, he passed. But his last words to me when I was leaving, I remember the car backing out of the driveway. He came up to the side of the car, the left side where I was sitting in the passenger rear side, passenger driver's side rather. And he just stuck his head in the window and he said, "Boy, you better be good." And those are the last words my brother ever said to me. And that's it. So I carry that with me. Even now, and I don't carry it in I'm sad kind of way. I'm gonna honor that memory because he saw something that I didn't see. And I do believe that God can utilize people in our lives to speak to the gift that is inside of us. Somebody had to remind me, there's something in you. So even though I'm in the midst of my mess and I think I'm not okay, somebody else is reminding me because God is speaking through them. You're going to be okay. I got you. So the people that are calling me mad, there's somebody else that God has sent my way to say, "Baby, I see you. Now you got to see somebody else." And so that's what I try to do for other people. And let me stop, y'all, because I can't. Let me stop.
Preach.
Let me stop.
So you mentioned when you were younger that, your mom was going through things, but you were also going through things and you wanted her to nurture to you. So this question is for the both of you. People who have an addiction to drugs often refuse to confide in their loved ones due to the feeling of being afraid of judgment.
Mm-hmm.
How do we as your loved ones provide a safe space for you without you feeling as though we're judging you? How do we do that for you?
Do you want to go first? You better go first, because you better go first.
There's a really fine line there between trying to provide a safe space and no judgment and allowing your family member to continue in what they're doing and enabling them. And enabling, you can love somebody to death if they're an addict. So really, man, if I was a loved one and I would listen because I understand. And my fiance, she suffers from addiction. She's been clean some years. I've been clean 7 years. And I know, so I believe that, there's a gene. And there's a chance my daughter might have that gene. So down the line, because I know I've been through it and I drug my family through the mud, I'm just gonna have to keep an open mind like, hey, I know I've been through what you're going through. I understand. But you got a couple options here. Either you're gonna go and get yourself some help, all right, or you can get out. And I wouldn't suggest maybe kicking them out and kicking to the curb, but it's a really hard question to answer because every person that's in addiction, you can love them, you can pray over them, you can bring them to church, you can throw them to rehab, you can do all these things, but someone who is on drugs, I firmly believe they're not gonna stop using until they want to stop using, So you just have to be there to support them when it comes time. Like my uncle, for example, my uncle, he was always a father figure in my life. And I'll say this and shut up, like he always knew. It was funny, we had a family dinner, Thanksgiving. My mother-in-law was there, my fiance, a whole bunch of family. And I've been clean for like 7 years at this time. And he said, "David, you remember the time when you asked me for $20 for gas and you didn't even have a car?" That was, and he just kept going, and your family never forgets. They never forget. But I remember, he always knew. Like, he cut it off at a point. He's like, "Look, I'm gonna love you from a distance. No, you're not getting any more money because you don't need gas, you don't have a car, right? I don't care what it is. If you're hungry, I'll buy you food, But when you're ready for help, I know a place." And sure enough, when I was ready for help, within 20 minutes, he was at my house taking me to that place, to detox. So there's a very fine line there that you just have to show unconditional love. You can't make someone feel less than because of their problems, and you just have to be ready to help when that time comes.
And as I see it, you know, if you really want to know how to help, the first thing, I think it's important that we be who we say we are. And I can say this because I was hurt by people in the church. So if you're going to say you love God and you trust God, the first thing that I had to understand about God is He loves people, no matter what they look like. If I see you in the quicksand, my job is not to ask how you got there. My job is to help get you out. We can talk about this later, how you got there. You know, I think it's important to understand that people who are addicted to substances are not using because they're addicted to the substances. They're using because they're addicted to escaping from reality. And then the Bible says, in all you're getting, get understanding. See, I can say that because I'm here, so you know I can say that. I think it's important for us to understand that when we say things like what goes on at this house, you leave it at this house. But if what's going on at this house is killing me and hurting me, see, I gotta choose me. I can't let this keep me in this place, because if I do, it's causing me harm. Trying to fix you might end up breaking me. I gotta choose me. So I think it's important for us to see our loved ones and get to the why behind the use. Why, as I see it, is who hurt you or what hurt you. And if that thing that hurt them is something that stemmed from the household, we have to be willing to look at that as a family unit. Because when you can get to the root cause of what happened, then you get the help.
I don't think I'm qualified, I don't know what to do, but to sit on this stage and have a conversation, honest conversation with you all, just meant the world to me. And the fact that we can incorporate God in everything and anything that we do meant the world. So I just want to say thank you again on behalf of our chapter, and thank you for taking the time out to have this honest conversation.
Thank you.
No. I ain't got the time. And my daddy thinks I'm fine. Just try to make me go to rehab. I won't go.
House is not the only person I'll highlight in the musical industry. There will be others. You can turn it down, DJ. Thank you. So, I was gonna say forgive me for the props, but nah, someone told me if you wanna push your brand, you gotta push your brand. So that's my brand. I started a podcast in 2020 during the pandemic. It's called the Brain Love Podcast. And I talk about all things under the umbrella of mental health. So it's still morning. Good morning, everyone. To the president of this wonderful chapter, President Tony Gillum Harrison, Esquire. She told me not to worry about that part, but no, we gotta give you props where props are due. And to my esteemed guests, the mental health advocates, and everyone who's here today because of the interest in addiction. This is a very essential conversation to have, and I'm glad that we're here having it, and so far it has been dynamic. So thank you to everyone who has presented so far and has been so vulnerable. Now, it's a common problem that affects people worldwide, addiction is. And let me ensure my speaker is connected. All right, we're good. Just to show you how prevalent it is, I'd like to play something for you.
I don't know about you. A lot of drugs can be a right love for...
So notice the accent, right? All right, this is not someone in America. This is someone over in Europe.
But for me, my personal experience of taking drugs was not, I wasn't a recreational drug user, not from the get-go. For me, it was medicinal from the first ever time I took drugs. So I was unhappy, I was miserable, I felt lost, I felt alone, and if anyone could offer me anything that would deal with that feeling, I'll have it. But when I was a little kid, chocolate biscuits, when I was an adolescent, pornography, when someone come along with drugs, I'll take it, I'll do it. You know, the only thing, in fact, that I was circumspect, doubtful and questioning about was abstinence-based recovery, the one thing that's actually fucking worked. Well, when the dawn finally came, suddenly I was interrogatory, suddenly I was inquisitive, suddenly I had inquiries and questions. It's the one thing that's worked for me, 100%. And the more I commit to it, the more I get back from it, the more I'm willing to help other people, the better I feel. What I reckon, for us people that are drug addicts, alcoholics, whatever, I consider it, and I know like Chip's a double committed atheist, it's like he's deliberately trying to annoy God, but like on purpose. But I believe in God, and I believe that for like that we drug addicts, alcoholics, it's like we've got a spiritual craving, a yearning, and we don't have the language, we don't have the code to express that in our society. But the feeling won't go away, so you've got to nullify it, anesthetize it somehow.
Okay, so I wanted to play that because Russell Brand is someone who's well known in the comedy space, and he also talks about his addiction a lot. And what you heard him say was he started with desserts, biscuits, then it went to pornography as an adolescent, and then it went to drugs. People will say that the gateway drug is cannabis. That's hogwash. It actually starts way before that. It starts with other items that people begin to overuse because of the way it makes them feel. We haven't spoken about it, but addiction is created because, as this gentleman mentioned, we do believe from studies that there is a gene. There is an allele that is connected. So you're right, my brother, there is a gene that's connected in these folks who have challenges with addiction and overusing things. So besides things such as recreational drugs, the cocaine, the heroin, the prescription pills, oh, and I'll say cannabis too, because you guys know cannabis is not legal federally, it's still an illegal substance. As well as food can be addicting, sex can be addicting. Anything that taps into your brain reward center, which is the dopamine pathway, can lead to addiction. So don't just think, as someone mentioned earlier, that it's just the recreational drugs, that it's just alcohol. It's not just tobacco. It's something that affects people from every background. Just like suicide, addiction does not know race, it does not know gender, it doesn't know socioeconomic status. And some people who are affected, and also I want to emphasize it's not just in the poor communities. People will ask what came first, drugs or poverty? Well, poverty was there already. What happens is people use drugs to try to cope. They try to cope by using drugs or using alcohol or smoking cigarettes. Some Black entertainers have struggled with addiction. And I just wanted to mention a few of them because I'm a music fiend, if you can't tell. I love music. I use songs to help me fill in the gaps of my timeline. So the first one I'd like to play is this lady. And this song is so sad, so sad. And I was a little girl in junior high school, and I would listen to this song over and over and over again. I didn't know then that the Lord had preordained me to become a psychiatrist, because I thought I was supposed to deliver babies. But I would listen to this song, and sometimes I would cry. And I wondered how someone so beautiful was so sad, but you just don't know what's going on. So listen to these words.
And we share this apartment together, just us two. Think of how we planned to get married, same love how I used to know you well. Whoa, I can't stand this feeling alone.
So as a kid, I'm like, she talking about getting married. I guess they didn't get married, they didn't get together, they broke up. So oftentimes addictions can also be perpetuated from relationship problems. A lot of the patients that I treat in the office, that's a common story that they give. And many times a lot of the patients have a shared addiction with another person. They're both abusing alcohol, they're both abusing cocaine or heroin or prescription pain pills. So what's the name of that artist, by the way? Okay. Yes. One of the greatest singers ever. Gone too soon. What kind of feeling do you get from this song? Does it make you happy? Melancholy. Yeah. And who's singing? Billie Holiday. The one and only Billie Holiday. You know, these are the things we have to teach our children about this music. Because what we have now, it stems from jazz and blues and people like Billie Holiday and Miles Davis. So they both were challenged with addiction, Miles Davis and Billie Holiday. And so, you know, another situation of Miles Davis was he had sickle cell. So he would have a lot of sickle cell crises, and he would use heroin to deal with his pain, which we know later in life, this pill called OxyContin came along. This family made money in creating this pill that would create an addiction for folks that was almost unavoidable for people who used it and had a predilection for addiction. So think about that gene, the DNA that I mentioned. And then also the socioeconomic situation for many people who fall into the throes of addiction. They're there because they don't have that loving parent or that household that hugs them and loves them and tells them that everything will be okay. They're there because of being bullied at school. They're there because of peer pressure. I heard that being mentioned as well. They're there because of financial challenges. So I just wanted to bring up a few of those artists. And before I leave that, I also just want to say addiction, as I told you, affects everyone, every socioeconomic status, every race. And so we know we've had some presidents who have admitted to abusing drugs. So that mean monster of addiction does not exclude anyone. Obama admitted to using, can y'all believe Obama used cannabis? Obama used cannabis, and he was frank in saying that he used regularly. President Bill Clinton used cannabis, but he said he didn't inhale. He a lying ASS. That boy lying. You didn't inhale, especially after we saw what happened in the, you know what I'm talking about if you're of age. Yes, that's right. President John F. Kennedy, check this out. This dude was addicted to Demerol, codeine, methadone, before methadone was really known as methadone. I'm from Baltimore, from Harford County, went to undergrad in Baltimore, you heard my bio. And we would see people on the side of the streets in Baltimore City doing what we call the heroin lean. You know what that looks like? That's like, it feels so good, they don't want to move. That's how good it feels to them. So he was using methadone. Then he had the nerve using all these downers to combine it with some Ritalin. Ritalin is an upper. So some people would do the downers, then they want to throw in some Ritalin, some Adderall. He also used Librium and barbiturates. This dude was on a whole combination of stuff. And when that happens, I ask the patient, what happened in your life? What happened in your history? Let's talk about it. And you gotta go way back because some of these traumas start early. They start early. And they see things no child should see. President Franklin Pierce was also addicted to marijuana. He would smoke marijuana during wartime. During the Mexican-American War, he would smoke weed with his soldiers and said that was the best part about being in the conflict. Baby. He also used, this is President Ulysses Grant. He was on cocaine. So as people say, there's a lot of terms to describe people with different addictions. I'm sure you guys have heard of crackhead, cokehead, people who bip, just to keep it real. So President Grant was addicted to cocaine. In fact, Grant reportedly took cocaine while he wrote his famous memoirs. The dude was high, riding high. But we know a lot of artists, especially hip hop artists, they go into the studio, they're smoking, popping pills, using lean, doing different combinations of substances while they're writing and making music. And we listen to it later like, yeah, girl, but turn that up. So he remained addicted, he as in President Grant, until he was 63 when he died from cocaine use. Andrew Jackson was another president who talked openly about overusing cannabis and using tobacco. Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, his story is not as impressive as the cocaine and stuff. He grew hemp. So for some of us, we just learned about hemp 10 years ago, but Thomas Jefferson was growing hemp in his backyard. And he said he used hemp because it helped his pain. He had some kind of pain, so he would use the hemp and smoke it. And then George Washington, George Washington ain't excluded either. He grew hemp as well, and he used marijuana on a regular basis. So it's been around for a long time, a long time. Think about the first time you heard the term addiction. Somebody throw some stuff out there. When do you recall back?
Working with the clinical setting for over 10 years. A 2013 graduate from St. Thomas University, Herman has had the privilege of learning some of the most innovative and knowledgeable therapists and educators to represent their respective areas of expertise. Herman's interaction with various relational systems has led him to pursue a Doctor of Marriage and Family Therapy at Nova Southeastern University. He has maintained success as a therapist in a number of settings. Herman has experience working with issues including, but not limited to, depression, anger, substance abuse, behavioral issues, couples concerns, and psychodynamic groups for multiple age groups. Our next one we did introduce briefly earlier, Dominique Troutman. So Dominique is a clinical toxicologist with over 14 years of experience in the field of toxicology. Her career path to toxicology began at Florida State University as an undergraduate student pursuing medical school. However, who said woo?
Hey.
If it's not that, it's this, okay? All right. I didn't even go there, but I'm about sick of y'all. All right. Now, South Florida. Now, if I do this, y'all gonna be like, who? Okay, go Bulls. However, postgraduate life at Barry University sparked a new but somewhat lateral interest when Dominique began her career collecting patient specimens for drug testing. With her knowledge and expertise, Dominique built her own client base and founded her own laboratory consulting company known as Veneration Toxicology Lab Solutions, which is also a sponsor here today. Now, Veneration provides supportive services for drug testing clinical laboratories throughout the U.S., such as data analysis training, management consulting, and medical technologist training. Her passion is to educate parents and children on the dangers of synthetic drugs and alcohol abuse that have severely impacted our community. And last but certainly not,
We have met our panel. We have Dr. Delvina Thomas, Dominique Troutman, and Mr. Herman McLean. After Dr. Delvina's speech, in keynote speak, she made me transition all my questions. Like I was there typing like, oh my goodness, she has some great things. So I have some written questions, but if you see me switch off, just know it's her fault. And so Dr. Delvina, could you explain how mental health conditions can be interconnected with substance use?
Yes, absolutely. So a lot of times people will self-medicate because they have challenges. They have things like anxiety, which is nervousness, which is a common reason why folks will abuse alcohol. Alcohol is one of those substances that targets a receptor in the brain that targets, it's the same receptor that's targeted by medications that we can give to treat anxiety. Those medications are medications that are not considered the mainstay for treating anxiety, but they treat anxiety acutely, meaning for a short period of time. And so oftentimes things like anxiety, depression, and trauma is a big one. A traumatic past, people have not been diagnosed with PTSD. A lot of Black people haven't been diagnosed with PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. So people will look for a way to forget what happened to them, to dissect, to sever the emotional ties to their trauma from the past. And one more big one is insomnia. Sleeping problems can also lead someone down the path of addiction.
And Herman, in your practice, can you provide us with some of the insights of things you've seen with working with clients, with working with families struggling with addictions? What are some of the things that you've seen that the community may need to know so that we're more aware?
Oh, that's a great question. Hello, everybody. Yeah, that's a great question. What I see, what is a common belief is that addiction is an individual thing that we have to solve and deal with alone. But working in the rehabilitation centers and treatment clinics, we'll do all the therapy we can with the person, get them to a point of sobriety. They'll be clean for a matter of months, and then they go back to the system that they were already a part of, and then relapse happens. What happens is this whole thing is systemic. We're all interconnected. When you go to AA meetings, we tell clients going to AA meetings, sit in the same seat. NA meetings, sit in the same seat. The reason being is because you're not doing it for you, you're doing it for somebody else that might be looking for you, something familiar to connect with in that seat. Same thing with families, right? Initially, when you asked me to be here, you asked me to talk about coping skills, but I think it's indicative. If we talk about coping skills, you also have to talk about the triggers. And some of these triggers that people that are impacted by addiction, some of these triggers are ingrained in our family systems that we don't even realize. Some of the pressures or anxieties that our systems put on us that we don't even realize. People dealing with addiction, and I'm gonna just speak in generalities because I know everybody's different, but a lot of people go to substances because of the internal, it's not even like pressures from the outside, it's pressures from the inside of how to be, how to act, how to numb. The gentleman before, and I appreciate you before, you made a statement, and I just want to make a slight correction on that one. Addiction can be emotionally, something that you can be emotionally dependent on. But substances can also be physically dependent. One of them being alcohol. An alcoholic drinks too much, guess what happens when they stop drinking? They could die. They could die. So, I'm not sure if I went on a tangent. I do apologize. I do apologize, but those are some of the things that are we have to be aware of, right? We talk about coping skills, but we also have to talk about the triggers that we may or may not be known to be present within our family that we do. So if we're helping someone that is recovering from like addiction or dependence on a substance, I think it's important that we look at some of our patterns that we are doing to support this maladaptive behavior of addiction or relying on a substance. Again, I'm not sure if I answered your question, but...
You helped lead into my next question, which is a perfect lead into Dominique. So Dominique, what you do, you're able to see the effect of substances from the inside out, from the mental to the physical. Can you explain to everyone, because I don't know about you all, but I've never met a Black toxicologist, right? So can you explain the importance of the blood and urine samples and their effectiveness as a diagnostic tool, and what type of valuable insights they give to clinicians such as ourselves who are helping individuals struggling with substance addiction, substance use?
So, yes, that's a very interesting statement, because as soon as I tell people what I do, the first thing they ask me is, what is that? So I'm responsible for drug and alcohol analysis on blood and urine samples. What that means is the clinicians and physicians, the majority of my client base are detox facilities, rehab facilities, and pain management clinics. The physicians need the results that I give them to know how to diagnose their patient and or to continue treatment. They want to know, number one, is the patient taking the medication that I prescribed them? Number two, are they taking it correctly? For example, buprenorphine is a drug that's used to help cope with addiction. A lot of the patients that may not necessarily want to do the right thing, okay, they won't take the medication. But what they'll do is scrape the pill into their urine. So of course, it's positive for buprenorphine. That makes sense, right? However, the science shows that if they are taking this medication properly, I will see buprenorphine and I will also see the metabolite of buprenorphine. So I can tell the doctor, no, the patient is not taking the medication like they're supposed to, number one. I can also tell them if the patient has relapsed. For example, they'll tell me the patient has a history of heroin abuse. The clinical name is 6-ma'am. So when I'm doing my data analysis, I will see whether or not that patient is positive for 6-ma'am. And I can let the physician know the patient has relapsed. So my portion is significant in diagnosing and treating the patient so they know how to move forward with their treatment plan.
So it sounds like you were working collaboratively with the clinician to help us in assisting the clients through their treatment planning process. That's great. But you all mentioned some things, and I started off in a substance use facility in Sunrise Treatment Center. And as a clinician, if that's your first experience, you're going to get a wealth of experience, okay? Eva worked with me as well. We were up at 5 a.m. working with individuals living with substance abuse, and it takes a wealth of compassion. But you all talked about buprenorphine and methadone. For those in the audience who do not know, those are harm reduction treatments. So we don't tell you to stop using, we allow a safer way to allow you to use a similar substance that kind of stops the cessation of you wanting to use the more harsh substance or the more dangerous substance. And with that, I wanted to ask, this question goes to all of you on the panel, how do we support our community when addiction in our community is criminalized, whereas in other communities, it's seen as a need to create these services, harm reduction. Opioids was an epidemic, whereas crack was incarceration.
That's a loaded question.
I came up with that after while I was saying.
But don't get it twisted. If someone overdoses on the opioids and they find who gave them the opioid, that person is going to prison. So the system is trying to correct itself with the opioid epidemic. It didn't start out that way, but they're trying to correct themselves. What can we do in our communities? Well, we need more of you to go to school and become toxicologists and become mental health professionals and become substance abuse counselors and become psychologists and become social workers and become psychiatrists. We need more of that so that we're educating children. We need more of us to do things in the community like what we're doing today so that we can educate, so that people who attend will go and tell other people and share the information. We need more information sharing. We also need the government to do more in terms of, and I know there are some people who oppose that and say we need to do for ourselves. Well, we do, but when you come from, 200, 300 years of slavery, civil rights, Jim Crow, redlining, no life insurance, no health insurance for such a long time, you kind of get a slow start. So the government needs to put community substance abuse facilities in our communities. We need that so that we can offer the treatment. When people are addicted and don't have anywhere to go or don't know where to go, they don't know where to turn to or who to turn to. So I would start with that. And Dominique minimized her position on the interdisciplinary team of treating substance abuse you have to absolutely have someone who specializes in what Dominique offers. It's very essential. You cannot do your job in a substance abuse facility if you don't have a Dominique, if you don't have someone there that's providing that resource for you. So I just wanted to give you your props on that, because we cannot prescribe the medications, we can't make the treatment plans without having her. So she is absolutely essential, and we need more people like her.
I want to add to that. We spoke earlier about basically letting it be known if there's an issue in the house, okay? Those of you that know me know a little bit about my story. My biological father was addicted to drugs. And that's one of the reasons that I ended up in this profession, because I wanted to know what I could do to be directly a benefit to people that have had substance abuse issues. We got to talk about it. We have to share. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's nothing that you have to hide. It's none of that. He was addicted, and he is doing well now. He has some health challenges because of his addiction. However, my story, I'm sure, can help someone else. His addiction led him to actually try to kill my mother. So if we don't talk about it, how can I help somebody else if they don't know? So I want to be able to share my story, not be embarrassed about my story. That can help somebody else that's going through something, maybe not the same thing, they may be going through something similar, but that helps them to acknowledge, accept, and ask for help.
Just to chime in on what these two ladies said, I think what we can do is be more vulnerable. I think, excuse me, I talked a little bit previously about internal pressures that we put on ourselves to be perfect or to seem like we don't have anything wrong with them. I think conversations like this allow us to be vulnerable and break the facade of perfection. We're not perfect. Spoiler alert, nobody in this room is perfect. No, I'm gonna say it again, spoiler alert, nobody in this room is perfect. And nobody is absolved from addiction. That's just what it is. So I think if we start to be real, be vulnerable, and understand that our past is not who we are, it's just how this just makes us who we are. It doesn't determine who we are, it makes us who we are, right? Did that make sense? Okay. But I think if we have more conversations like this, spread more education, make more available resources, I think that's the way we start to heal and beat this addiction thing.
And Dr. Thomas, you brought in the aspect of music. And right now we know music is very influential to us and to our youth. You all brought up communication as well, being open. In the past, music kind of romanticized addiction. You had D'Angelo with Brown Sugar, okay? Yeah. But now it's more overtly expressed. So it's not hidden, it's not coded in any type of way. They're blatantly saying these things. How do we reach our youth who are heavily impacted by music and then let them know that this is not the road you want to start going down? There are other means to get you to help you through whatever you may be going through. There's someone else that you can talk to. Music is good for release, but don't let that be your guiding force.
Yeah. Well, you have to be your child's hero. You have to be the person that they look up to, because you teach them, you train them up, you love them, you talk to them, you communicate with them. When you mention the songs and the music that's laced with all of this drugs and addiction terminology, the first song that came to mind for me was Molly Percocet. Yeah. You know, because, and before I realized what they were saying, did I take some? Were you gonna say that?
No.
Oh, okay.
I was dancing with you.
Yeah, right. Before I knew the words, I was like, but then I'm like, wait a minute, he's saying Molly Percocet. Nah, man, screw that. No. So when you hear music like that, you have to talk to your kid about it. Like, do you understand what they're saying? I remember in middle school when NWA came out, My mama was not having NWA played in her house. We had to sneak to play NWA. So that's the other challenge is our kids will sneak to do things, but you have to ensure that they know the consequences of what they do. And one last thing, Chris Brown has a song that came out again. I guess it came out a few years ago and they brought it out again, and this time it's more popular. I cannot think of the words. Does anyone know what song I'm talking about? He talks about using...
Pills and automobiles?
Say it again?
Pills and automobiles?
Yes, that.
Under the influence?
Yes, under the influence. Yes. So we have to talk to our kids. You got to have a family meeting every week. My father had a family meeting every week. We ate dinner together most of the time, but we had a family meeting on Sundays. And that's where you talk to your kids about these types of things. You ask them, what do you think about this? What are you hearing in school about that? So we had a lot of communication in my home, good and the bad stuff.
Everyone is very inclusive.
So, excuse me, I wanted to add to that. When I do my presentations for middle school and high school, to get their attention, I start with the songs. So they're dancing, they're singing the words, and then I stop the music, I put the lyrics on the screen, and then I start showing them pictures of what those drugs that they're singing about do to people. You can hear a pin drop in the room. But I do that to let them know, do you know what you're singing? I don't think you know what you're singing. You're influenced by the beat. Oh, it's a nice beat. But what are you singing? Do you know the lyrics to these songs? Some of these songs are talking about drugs that can kill you on the first try. There's another drug that's, actually it's ravishing the ICU right now. My line sister has been informing me about some of the cases that she's seen. I don't know if you've heard of ISO. A lot of the teenagers that are trying this, first try is busting their hearts wide open. So these are the things that we have to tell our kids. They need to know, okay, it's cool, right? But do you know what it can do to your body? Another thing that doesn't necessarily get talked about, some people that try these substances, they may have underlying health issues, mental issues, and these substances completely wreck their mental health. Completely wreck their mental health. All from one hit. So these are the types of things that the community needs to know, these children need to know, the parents need to know. They need to know what to look for. My child is acting weird, but what are they doing? Are they hanging with new friends? Have they started eating something that you're not familiar with? Edibles is another big issue right now. The danger of edibles that people don't really realize is the fact that it has to be metabolized. So once you eat it, you're like, oh, I don't feel anything. So you keep eating it, right? And you run the risk of overconsumption. So by the time you feel something, it's already too much. And then you start having a lot of health challenges where you have to go to the hospital because you're at risk of overdosing from overconsumption. But people don't know that. They don't talk about it. So, sorry, I had to add that.
Herman, before you go, I just want to throw something out there so I don't forget. Go through your kids' stuff and let them know you're going through their property because it ain't their property, it's yours. Right. They live in your house, so you were talking about what can we do when they're listening to this music and stuff. One of the things you can do as a parent is you let them know from day one, I own this. This is my place. And when they say, you went in my room, yes, I did. It's my room. We sharing it right now until you move out. So don't establish for these kids that they have any privacy. Your kids should know they don't have privacy because they don't. And see, what happens is when they think they have privacy, they go out here, they want to do all these things and hide stuff and put things in. No, you don't have privacy. That's how I raised my son. His father and I divorced when he was in 6th grade. When he came to live with me, he had no privacy. Because your privacy is my privacy. You're not pulling nothing over on me, brother. Yeah. Sorry, I just got a little, some flashbacks.
And, parents, just so you know, the big thing with middle schoolers now, the little snack bags, They're putting dissolvables in the chip bags. That's how they're getting high at school, okay? And then the Gatorades, the juices, they just drop the little dissolvable pads that you can put on your tongue. So check your kids' bags.
We do a lot of outreach at schools, and one of the high schools said they might as well build a fire station right next to the high schools so that they can come pick up the kids and transport them successfully, because kids are passing out every day. There's so many more questions I want to get into, but due to time constraints, I'm going to let my soror come up, and we're going to take questions from the audience.
I want to say one thing, just one thing. In regards to that, it's a fad that's going on, because I see it within the kids that I treat every day. There's a fad where kids, we talked about systems and families, right? We talk about parents and having boundaries and control and stuff like that. I find kids that are taking parents' meds and distributing it at school without even having a knowledge of what the med is, right? So we have to be consistent with having boundaries and safeguards in place, regardless if they're kids. We all have positive things to say about our kids, but at the end of the day, they're like inmates trying to thwart the system. I hate to say it like that. They watching for any chink in the armor. They watching for any chink in the armor. Am I lying? Am I lying? They watching for any chink in the armor to get an advantage or get away with something. And it is our job to have the safeguard and know what's in place and kind of keep our kids safe in that aspect. Because again, a kid taking medicine out of a medicine cabinet to distribute at school, and this happened like not even a month ago, right? The kid is now going through the legal process, but this could have been avoided.
Parents be parents. That part.
Safety go-tos, it's everywhere. Churches try to provide that safe haven. So I believe religion has a place. There's spirituality, mental health, physical health, emotional health. And religion is a part of what creates our spirituality. You don't just get it from nowhere.
I agree. Can I chime in?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I definitely agree with Dr. Davina. Religion, it does have a place. I think more so spirituality has a place. I think in every step of sobriety, the first step is admitting that you're powerless, that the problem is greater than you. I think with spirituality, we have to understand that, I mean, if God is your God, and God is God to me, but God is greater than me. And that I'm just one part of the puzzle. And I have to admit that power, I have to lean on that greater power to get through this. I ain't trying to come up here to preach because I'm all about mental health right now. But,
yeah.
but spirituality is it should be present in every treatment modality, every clinical base, for substance abuse. But again, religion is very subjective. It's just by name, like the gentleman talked about earlier. It's a human invention. But it's really more about your relationship with your higher power.
Yeah, definitely.
Can I add?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So, being in this space, everyone that I know or that knows someone in treatment is the same answer. One of the 12 steps, right? I don't know what number it is, but one of the 12 steps talks about your faith and your higher power. Number 3? Okay. Number 3, you need your creator to help you get out of the mess that you're in. Okay? And every person that I know that is addicted, they've said they couldn't do it without God.
Yeah.
That's it.
So there's a book out there I heard a while ago, years past. Don't ask me who wrote it. Don't ask me where to find it. Google it. The title always stuck with me: When Bad Christians Happen to Good People. Okay. So I just laid my burdens down. Okay. Next question. Are there programs in my community that specialize in treating adolescents with mental health and substance abuse problems?
So for adolescents, it's the one that comes to mind for me is Fort Lauderdale Behavioral Health. And the reason being is that a lot of programs don't take children and adolescents, but they do. New Horizons is an outpatient mental health center in Miami, but I think there's some limitations there with regard to addictions. So every community mental health center, which is what New Horizons is and what Citrus is in the back, they may not offer the addiction part of the treatment, but I absolutely know Fort Lauderdale Behavioral Health offers that. And also the gentleman, one of the vendors back there, you guys have a program for adolescents, correct?
Not adolescents.
Oh, negative, never mind.
Here's help.
Here's help, thank you. Here's help from the audience.
Empowering youth.
What kind of treatment do they do? Is it medication and psychotherapy?
I don't know the breadth.
Because I don't know them to do that.
But I do know that substance abuse is one of their specialties.
So you may have to kind of dig deep to define what people offer, because there's so many different ways to treat someone with addictions, whether you're looking for inpatient, residential, where they're overnight, or if you want an IOP. Aventura Hospital and Memorial Hospital offer IOPs for adolescents with addiction.
Okay. So now, because this is for the community and we have opened it up to questions from the audience, we're going to ask that one panelist answer. So you guys don't have to figure out who's going to answer, okay? But want to make sure in the essence of time we get through these questions. And then there's a gentleman we're going to have speak to very briefly, 1 to 2 minutes as well. So I'm going to ask 2 more questions and then ask that the gentleman come up and speak. I've been called bipolar by my family and friends. What does that mean, and how can I find out if I have this issue?
Absolutely nothing. I think we use a lot of trigger words to label people, but we don't have the education to label these people. I think if you feel like you are, or I mean, a lot of people Wikipedia. If you align with all the Wikipedia description for bipolar, go see somebody. Go get a test. Go see a physician. Go see a psychiatrist. Go see a psychologist, and get a battery to accurately tell if you have bipolar. I mean, there's more than one bipolar. You could be borderline. You could be bipolar 1 or bipolar 2. So you don't know. But again, a family member would probably just say, "Oh, you toxic, or you bipolar, or you borderline," but they don't really know what it means. So I would suggest if somebody says that to you, don't take it personal. Just go see somebody, go see a professional, go get it tested.
Yeah, because words have power.
That's right.
Yeah. I do have an MD from Google. If anyone needs help with the Googlings, mention Wikipedia, I can help you with that. I am depressed most of the time. I do not want to take medication for my depression. We hear this a lot, and the response is usually just pray about it. Is there a natural herb that I can take, diet, change, or exercise regimen that can help me deal with this constant sadness?
So there's a lot you can do to deal with constant sadness. First, we ask patients how often are they exercising, because we know inactivity does not help with boosting your natural dopamine or norepinephrine levels or your serotonin levels. So being active, exercising, as well as we'll ask them, what is your sleep hygiene like? Because people who are not sleeping are irritable when they don't sleep. They're also sad and depressed when they don't sleep. And diet is an important basic question as well. What are you eating? It shocks me when someone tells me they're eating fried food and fast food all of the time. So I remind them, you are what you eat. So if you're not eating healthy, how are you expecting that you're going to feel well, or that you'll feel like getting out of bed and having a great day? The other question to them is, well, when were you last seen by your primary care doctor? When did you last have a physical? Because there are some physical health elements that can mimic depression. And then the other part of that is, who's in your circle? So before I turn to medication, before I send someone to psychotherapy, I want to establish that patient's baseline and see what their life is like. How are they living? Because oftentimes we do some things to ourselves in the way that we're living and the healthy habits that we don't have. So if it's situational, if it's a people in your circle, you mentioned the word toxic, if you don't have positivity in your circle, you yourself didn't learn how to be positive, then yeah, you might be depressed all the time. So those are the basic things you want to establish, and then from there, there's other recommendations you can make before you recommend to someone medication management.
Gordon Henry, if you will approach the pulpit. Just joking. If you'll come on down and share a couple of words. Now, this gentleman works for Nova Southeastern University.
The reason why I've been asked to speak today is because tobacco is still a prevalent issue in our community. You don't believe me? Just look across the street. We have a cigar lounge that is popping every weekend. And if you go to any club or bar that is in our community, you have the option to get a hookah. The biggest issue with the black community and most minority communities is that now they've made big tobacco so broad and ambiguous. You don't associate hookah with tobacco. You don't associate cigars with tobacco. You don't associate vaping with tobacco. All these things are still a part of the big tobacco community. And this is the ploy that they've put together now. And so what we're trying to get across to people is let's be more proactive in beating the curve, because the same thing happened 90 years ago. Big tobacco became a part of America's pastime when one of the presidents started smoking a cigar at a baseball game, and then it became so popular amongst Americans. But the thing was, we don't have the dead bodies in the corner to say that, hey, tobacco was bad at the time of 1920s and 1930s. 1950s came about, and then they saw that a lot of blacks and Hispanics weren't smoking as much as white people were smoking. And so then what they found out was blacks and minorities did not like the harshness of smoking, so they made a cigarette called menthol cigarettes. There's cooling, has an anesthetic in it, and it actually has a minty taste. If you go, I don't know about you guys, if you have memories of Ebony and Jet, in the back of the Ebony and Jet, what did you see? Either advertisement for cool, Camel menthols, or the Army. Okay? So I'm saying all this to say, oh, and by the way, because I got 2 minutes, I'll be brief. The top 3 e-cigarette companies are owned by the top 3 tobacco companies. They've made tobacco more broad and ambiguous, and they've also made it even more dangerous because now they have these devices, these vape and e-cigarette devices, to where you can use other substances along with these devices. You don't have to go out in the street to get, to use liquid heroin, liquid cocaine, methanol, fentanyl. If you can liquefy it, put it in a cartridge, you can use it with your vape. Okay? With our City Miami Gardens finest, every year we have Rolling Loud. And I'll leave you guys with this. We have Rolling Loud every year. Officers tell us that quietly they have people dying at Rolling Loud because of drug overdose. And it's all because of these products they use with vape and e-cigarettes. One kid, they said, was using liquid fentanyl with a vape. And they said 4 hours after he died, his body temperature was still 108. So, big tobacco has made it broad and ambiguous. It's now, we don't associate vaping with cigarettes. We don't associate hookahs with cigarettes. Cigarettes is bad, everything else is just okay. And because we don't have the dead bodies in the corner, then I guess it's not that bad. And well, it's not smoking, so it's not bad. Or it's not pure tobacco, so it's not bad. When in actuality, it's still an improper coping mechanism, which some of these health professionals can agree. And also, it's not targeting some of the stuff that may have led you to why you're smoking or using or vaping as much as you do. So if you guys got loved ones, please, take advantage of this information. Be proactive. That's what I would tell the minority community. A lot of times we're reactive. We wait for stuff to happen and then we try to do stuff. It's too late then. Let's be proactive. We don't have the dead bodies in the corner, but we have the information to know that big tobacco, vaping, hookah, all those products are still bad. They're still deadly. Okay? So, thank you.
Jamie.
I just want to say really quickly, the case that he mentioned.
Things we can do. I'll ask that again. A lot of college students normalize excessive drinking and do not realize how quickly it becomes alcoholism. What are some things you have to say about that, or things we can do?
Can I start it?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm waiting on you guys.
So just to give you a quick fact about the teenage brain and alcoholism, the brain continues to grow and be stimulated till 25. And when teenagers start drinking before that age, it actually shrinks the brain. More specifically, the frontal lobe. Okay? That's right here. And I wanted to add that because some of the places that I've been to speak, that's one of the questions from parents about teenagers drinking and what are some of the effects of it long term. So once your brain shrinks, it doesn't grow back. And they become addicted, not even knowing that they've caused this harm long term to their brains. So I wanted to start that, and then you can finish.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add. That's what I wanted to say, Sora, is that you got to tell your kids the facts. And the facts are that your brain is developing until it's in its early 20s. Now, some people would counter you by saying, in countries like Europe, countries in Europe, they allow drinking starting at the age of 18. And so it's legal there because alcohol, and this is just so you know the facts, everything done needs to be done in moderation. So a young person, an adult, they're considered an adult when they're 18, so they can start drinking alcohol at the age of 18. But excessive use is damaging to the brain. So just tell your kids that you shouldn't be using anything before the age of 21 or 22, but let them know that their brain is still developing. Telling them until 25 is unrealistic because but you give them the information and allow them to make a decision with that.
I think my son may be using drugs. His behavior has changed. Where can I take him to be tested for treatment?
I would start with the primary care physician, tell them your concerns, and then they can direct you on where to go specifically. A lot of the larger labs like Quest, LabCorp, they have drug testing, but there are private labs that have drug testing. But I would start with your primary care physician.
I'd say start at the CVS or the Walgreens.
Yes, because I ran them drug tests.
Get you a drug test easily.
I gotta add
well,
something
hold
to
on.
that.
You can start with that. You start with that, and then you can make an appointment to take them to the pediatrician. But you can start first in your household because the way to deter a behavior is to let them know I got ways to check on you. So when they know you can buy that drug test, that the test in the pharmacy to see if they're smoking cannabis or using heroin or taking pain pills, it really helps deter some stuff because they don't know when you're gonna make them give you a sample and test them. And then you can follow that with the physician or the lab. Because the thing you gotta remember, some people don't have health insurance.
You're right.
They're not going to the doctor. We're disenfranchised. We don't have health insurance. We don't have the money to pay for it. So it sounds good to say take them to the primary care or the pediatrician, but a lot of them don't have one.
You're right.
So starting in the pharmacy first.
Here's my issue with that. You are correct. But as a scientist, I have to let you know those things are not correct. They are not accurate.
They're pretty sensitive. You can test for drugs.
No, I know you can, yes. But they're not accurate. They're not always accurate. A lot of those over-the-counter drug tests, you may pop positive for PCP, for example, right? But then you actually get someone like myself to do the testing where it's screened and then confirmed. There's no PCP in there. It's a totally different drug, right? So I'm just saying that you can use them. Just know that it's not always accurate. Until it is scientifically tested in a lab, the right way is not always accurate. Just know that, yes, there's a possibility there's something in their urine, but it might not be what the test says it is.
Listen, I don't care what it popped for. If it popped for something,
Exactly. And I was just about to say that.
Okay.
If their behaviors are suggesting you do that and it's positive, it's telling you something. It's a good way to start, inexpensively.
Because you can also go to Amazon. That's what I call it. Make it sound fancy. I got a big box.
Yes.
Drug test.
Or go on Amazon.
And I randomly say, come here, son. You know what to do. I know you can't go to your bathroom. Right here, keep the door open. I'm going to treat you just how they going to treat you if you do it out in the streets. Come right on over here, keep the door open. I've seen what you have.
Yes. And urine cups that you guys use are available for people to purchase.
And they're not accurate. I'm telling you, they're not accurate.
But the point of it is if something does come up, that's an indication that you need to go and get additional testing and confirm. I'm going to ask, we're running out of time, but I do want to ask this question because you mentioned it as well, and it came from the audience. Where can someone go for mental health and drug treatment if they do not have insurance?
A community mental health center, and there's quite a few. Well, Thriving Minds is not a treatment center, it's an agency. So Thriving Minds is an agency that monitors all of the community health centers in Florida, but more so the inpatient and the residential type facilities. If you want community treatment, you go to a community mental health center. That's places like CHI, Budinquin. You can call BARC, B-A-R-C, B as in Bravo, A-R-C. BARC will direct you for inpatient and outpatient. There's New Horizons that I mentioned. I'm not sure how much New Horizons, what they have available, but they exist. And there's Henderson Health Clinic. There's a bunch of Henderson Health Centers in Fort Lauderdale, Miami. And then if you can't remember these names, if you go on Google, Google knows everything. Google community, and call 211 as Herman is mentioning. Call your local ER. They have social workers. They can give you a list as well.
So I'm going to combine two questions into one. This will be our last question. The first part is, do I need to hit rock bottom to be ready to accept treatment? It would not have been possible, the location, location. So I want to thank all of our sponsors also listed on the bottom of our program, and direct your attention to this.